Welcome everybody to Talking Niagara this morning with Peter Giblett and Dave Wheeler. Morning, Dave. How are you doing?
Not good.
Not good. Oh dear.
I only had a few hours sleep last night. I went and got my niece from the airport around
Oh,
at midnight, or a little after midnight, and
uh, I,
so still trying to wake up.
as opposed to getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, which and then not being late for the show.
Yeah, I do that a lot.
Yeah.
I do that a lot.
Okay, so today is Truth and Reconciliation Day.
Truth
Yeah.
and Reconciliation Day. Okay, so tell us, what does that really mean? Like, what does it mean for you, Peter?
What would make me feel? Well, that's an awkward one because
That's because I'm
it's
too
like,
tired to answer it myself.
sorry.
That's because I'm too
Was it
tired
make
to answer.
me? Well, I was actually didn't think because we have to come up and make some statement, and today at work, and I'm like, I don't know what to say, because I think, okay, so you got some interesting articles here, and the most interesting from my viewpoint is this. Six nations say that Crown owes trillions over the mismanagement of the Grand River lands, and it's like, yeah, this land, so supposedly 6 miles either side of the Grand River, was supposed to have been part of the treaty that gave land, and things like that. That it's like, I looked at some of the land on that Grand River. I thought about buying a plot of land on that Grand River. Didn't know anything about this treaty and how it's been mistreated, except how they've been mistreated, etc. Um, and it's like, I don't know. I'm just not sure that we still don't get it, if you know what I mean.
Well, the Truth and Reconciliation is supposed to reveal what the Indigenous people have gone through, and they were cheated
Yeah,
and taken advantage of, and all manner of things.
yeah,
Uh, and that is, but when does that happen? You see, my problem with it is yeah, all those things happen. Um, Probably most of the people in Canada today are not from the original group of people that came in and ripped them off. You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
uh,
yeah,
that's an issue. The other issue I have is that is that the natives themselves fought among each other and all that. But basically, when you get right down to it, we even during the day that we were making treaties with Indigenous people, we should have known better. We should have been we should have been more moral. We should have been more. Uh, I think we were. I think basically that the Canadian society, U.S. society, Australian society, whatever, just ripped the people off because they were savages in their mind. They were less capable of modernity, all manner of racial thoughts, and just I think basically just that they were weaker and they were exploitable, and that's just what
yeah,
people do.
yeah.
And
Exploitation, but exploitation doesn't just begin and end. Exploitation doesn't just begin and end with a conquered people. Exploitation is something that is pretty. We exist in our own society as well.
I find a whole lot of parallels with the people of Palestine right now when
Yeah,
they're put in
I
like
get it.
reserves, like Gaza was like a reserve, and then they kind of want to break out of there. It was like the Native Americans breaking out. And if you read anything about the story of Native Americans, when they fight back with atrocities, and they fight back viciously. And I think that's just human nature. But anyway, the main part of the Truth and Reconciliation began because of the residential schools. And I think the fact that they continued as long as they were was unforgivable. The fact that they were just a forgotten people. Here, we'll put them on these schools, we'll take the native out of them and all that kind of thing. So they were treated,
well, that was a whole bad thing to do, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, like I said, right now that reckoning
Dave,
is coming up. Okay. Have you lost me now?
Dave?
Yeah, I'm here.
I can hardly hear you, Dave.
Okay.
Yeah, so
can you hear me now?
I think you're going to end up coming back on. Okay, so there's a question for you. One of the things they do at the region is do this land acknowledgement. So they do at the beginning of every meeting, they hold what's called a land acknowledgement, and including a pledge which is to stand with all Indigenous peoples. Yeah. Okay. So I think I'm hoping this is better this time. I was just about to say they start meetings of the region with a land acknowledgement at the beginning of every meeting, including a declaration that pledges to stand with Indigenous peoples, past and present, in promoting wise stewardship of the lands on which we all live. And fulfilling that promise, they depend upon a 3-person Indigenous engagement team. Right, so that's part of the mandate of the Truth and Reconciliation.
Yes. Yeah. Speaking in front of. Yeah. Well, I don't know. You want to carry on? I'm kind of tired.
Right, and it says in here, we're all in this together. We're all one. We're all connected. Yes, and that's a vital part of it. You know, because I actually often wonder as to whether when we actually do new developments, whether we consider you know, whether we consider the land, the use that we are putting the land to as you know, properly. You know, do we consider that properly? You know, we've done some dreadful things in the past. You know, with the
It's human history. That's my point here. That was my point. We're doing this Truth and Reconciliation. We're having this look back at what we've done, what Canadian society have done to the Indigenous people and all that.
Well, it's not just that. We've also done to the land. You know, take, for example, the land at Cyanamid that is almost unusable.
I think my point here is it was almost unavoidable. It's almost unavoidable for one people to take advantage of another when they're in that. And the takeaway here is this: basically, when you look at Native history, you see one nation lording it over the other, one wiping another out. The Beaver Wars were a good example of this, where 5 nations went and massacred all their opponents in the way so that they could be the middlemen in the fur trade. It was a genocidal war all over the Ontario and in and around the Great Lakes system. Other tribes did the same thing. The Mi'kmaq were expansionists. The Sioux, when the Sioux were forced out of Northern Ontario, and Michigan, they became the scourge of the West, and they were brutal against the Kiowa, the Pawnee, and others. So and any kind of image we have of them on the screen nowadays is the noble savage, and how great they were. The fact of the matter is, when the white people came here, the natives were already killing each other in massive numbers, trying to lord it over each other, just like we had been doing in Europe, or our ancestors had been doing it in Europe. I think however, the white European civilization dominated, of course, because they had bigger numbers. It brought diseases that it would have made a big difference. There would be a lot more native in pockets in the country if it hadn't been for the diseases. Yeah. What the takeaway here is, all these things happened, and the white civilization overwhelmed and dominated the indigenous peoples, and then treated them with disregard thereafter. I think that's the biggest takeaway we have to get. If anything I see out of this is what humans do. Let's not have this happen again. We have a small amount of indigenous people that have survived all of that. They have survived it. And to try to take lessons from what happened to them and how they responded to the sort of overlook that Canadian history and Canadian people that we celebrate the War of 1812 war here in Southern Ontario. It is the war that made Canada. Yet we would not have won it. We would not have been able to chase the Americans away if not for our Indigenous allies.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And in fact, actually, our Indigenous allies are actually a key part of the whole foundation of Canada anyway. And there were, as were many of these treaties that the British entered into and then broke. And let's be honest, the Americans entered into plenty of treaties with their Indigenous population and broke them as well.
Well, yeah, because guess what? The Indigenous people didn't realize they had to have a lawyer to read the contract before they signed it. There was small print in every one of those agreements. They just said, "Here, if you sign this, the black holes of Dakota are yours forever," or the Grand River, 6 miles on either side, is yours for forever. But then there's this little kind of small print thing. And they said, "Well, we signed it." Well, it says right here. Well, how am I supposed to know? I don't read English. I don't read anything. And you wrote it, and you told me it was good, and I believed you. And the people who signed it, or the people who even created it and approached the Indigenous people, may have been truthful, but when they died, then somebody else perverted the treaty and twisted it. So I think the biggest takeaway here is how one people treats another when it becomes to dominate them, and how it rewrites history. And I think that's a very, very good lesson for us. As a matter of fact, as I say, I see a lot of parallels happening in Palestine right now, as people are being wiped off their history, at least, is being wiped off. Their peoples are being killed, of course, but their history is also being wiped off. In Israel itself, Israel has gone on a tree planting sort of thing, where it plants over places where Palestinians used to live, so there's no more recognizable place where they used to live. They're kind of wiping the sort of their memory right off, like we did with the Indigenous people here. And I think those are the things we can learn.
You and I didn't, but I get it that the invaders did.
Yeah. So and and we are left holding the bag for what people have done before us, and that's another thing I have difficulty with. And we do have a society that was um, created, and we took lands and things like that from people who owned them and pushed them aside and took it, and now we have a good life because of it. But we're not the ones that did it. We're the ones
yeah, I
who
was going
came
to say,
into that happen.
the person who bought that, bought that acreage that butts onto the Grand River and has a fun day with their boats on the river, etc. They're not the person who is guilty for having broken that treaty, right? They did nothing wrong, right? The question here, though, is does that treaty? It does mean that situation is one of there's still issues surrounding the breaking of that treaty.
I don't know how we can compensate the Six Nations for that.
Problematic, yeah.
Anytime I think of that treaty being broken the way it was, I'm angry. I feel ashamed, actually.
Yeah.
That
and in fact, those lands are billions of dollars worth right now, aren't they?
Yeah, trillions, maybe. I don't know, but
I don't know. I
see is I have a deep-seated embarrassment, and kind of a bit of a bit humiliated by the fact that our predecessors did that to them. They did not honor that. They did not, and they were easily duped out of their lands, and easily taken advantage of. And there was nobody there to say, hey, we gave it to them ad infinitum. That's what it says in the treaty. This is because they fought on our side and they helped us. They actually helped us in 2 wars. But that treaty goes back to 1784. 1784. And we broke our word. Our Canadian government broke its word. I mean, and took the lands and it used a bunch of corruption to do it. It used corrupt Indigenous people to deal with. It used a dirty dealing to this is good land. This was good farmland and coveted farmland. And we just cheated them. And I don't know how you can how we turned our back on the Indigenous people up to that point. And no wonder they're bitter.
Yeah, every right to be. Right. Okay. Peter Biker says the truth is politicians speak with forked tongue. I love that phrase. Reconcile that with all the lives they're paid to promulgate. Yeah. The fascism of compassion means you're an oppressor. You just trust your professor.
Yeah, really. Oppression, when the oppressor decides to be compassionate or whatever, that's it's long after the oppressor is quite sure they are that nothing will change. And then it's time. Then it's time to hold out the olive leaf and say, "Oh my, can I help you now?" But until the oppression is completely thorough, and there's no recourse for your other, then you hold out. Then you become kind and generous, and So there is some.
Hypocrisy. It's not related, but I was talking about. I was talking about this at work the other day, and it was a very similar subject, though. The massacre the British troops did, say the British, and it wasn't, it's British troops, which many of those British troops were Indian. But the massacre that was performed in Amritsar in the Punjab in the 1920s is got some
1,500
similarities.
people got killed, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's got
1,500
some
people got shot to
similarities to
death.
what
Yeah.
we're talking about here, and the fact that you have a regime that was brutal during its heyday, and there's been other massacres in other parts of the world performed by other powers that have taken over certain lands, right? And all of these kind of things, they are parts of history that we can't just gloss over.
Well, my point is that humans are humans, and I brought up the Beaver Wars earlier, where the Five Nations went on a genocidal massacre zone, right? Where they fanned out, they killed all the neutral. Well, they genocided the neutrals, the Hurons, the Eries. They went after the Mohicans. They went after the other Western tribes. They pushed the Algonquins farther north. They had a huge swath of territory which they controlled with vicious force, and like with genocidal channel fervor. Because why did they do that? Because that's what we do. It doesn't matter that there's what color their skin was. It didn't matter what kind of culture they come from. But that's what human beings do, and that's what we did largely to the indigenous people. Basically, we just kind of genocided, put them in little reservations, the ones we didn't kill. But at the same time we were doing that, the Sioux was lording it over the Kiowa, like I said before, and the Blackfeet were lording it over the Cree. It just doesn't matter. That's what we are. If I learn anything from this, is the unfortunate near elimination of the indigenous peoples of North America is a result of what people do to one another. And if we're going to take anything out of this, we are lucky that some of these indigenous people have survived. So it's a constant reminder what people do to other people. And the result of what happened to indigenous people in Canada right now is and their terrible conditions, the drugs and alcoholism and all that, and unemployment and lack of ability to aspire. That's all of a legacy from that time. There's things here we can learn. The Day of Reconciliation is rubbish. We haven't reconciled anything right now. We haven't really faced the truth. Really, we haven't. And it's time. And I think the Truth and Reconciliation Day is one little step closer to the truth and reconciliation. But our real takeaway out of this is what humans do to other humans, and the native,
not just
indigenous people of Canada are a constant reminder of what one people will do to another, and how do we look at and now we have that exact thing going on in Gaza right now. And it's cultural appropriation, it's taking of land, it's minimalizing people, making others children of a lesser god kind of thing. We still haven't really learned much, have we?
No, we've got a long way to go. Well, in fact, actually, when we go on to the next story, which I thought was appropriate here, this Republican cult of personality around Viktor Orbán. This came up because one of the things that Trump said in that debate, he praised Orbán on what he had done in Hungary in terms of, changing the narrative within Hungary. But in fact, actually, there's a whole question about this because is he the kind of person that Trump really thinks we should be looking up to, right?
Well, that was part of the debate. That got kind of overlooked because of the dogs and cats thing.
I know.
And when we reviewed his debate that time, that's the second thing I brought up after the dogs and cats. was the thing that raised eyebrows as much for me as the dogs and cats thing, when he said that Viktor Orbán thinks a great deal of him, one of the most controversial figures right now. I thought that was the dumbest thing I ever heard, aside from the dogs and cats thing. And here's McConnell quoting. It says, "I've spoken before about Hungary's decade-long drift into the orbit of the West's most determined adversaries." McConnell said in the Senate floor, "It's an alarming trend, and nobody, certainly not the American conservatives, who increasingly form a cult of personality around Prime Minister Viktor Orbán, can pretend not to see it." And McConnell, old poker face McConnell, he's quite upset about this. I think McConnell sees day after day the old Republican Party leaving, that which is, and this other thing that's coming to replace it, this kind of cult of Trump, who mentions stuff like Viktor Orbán, himself. But I think the biggest problem that he's seeing is a lot of senators and conservatives now taking lionizing Viktor Orbán as the person that is really holding out against sort of the woke agenda of the rest of Europe. And even Tucker Carlson went and he did a big interview telling everybody how great Viktor Orbán was. Now, Viktor Orbán scores points because he finds his country swamped with refugees and puts up a big border, and it doesn't want them, and deflects them, and makes a point of making a big to do about it, and that buys him a lot of support from the people in the country. However, it's kind of like a Hitlerian type of figure or a demagogic figure, which gives you a few things you want, tries to blame other people for your own problems. Now, it says here, though McConnell did not call out Donald Trump by name, the former president and many of his Republican allies praised the autocratic Hungarian leader, especially for his stances against immigration and attacks on LGBTQ plus and abortion rights. Yeah, my problem with Viktor Orbán is not that he has these stances. I expect that a lot of people have these stances, but the fact of his growing dictatorship type of grip on the country, that's where I feel there's a problem here. He's a strong leader, but it looks as if that he may be changing things so that democracy will has little chance of surviving in Hungary. What are your opinion there, Peter?
Well, he's a disturbing guy until Trump brought him up. I'd not really explored that question too much, and that's kind of the point. That was my introduction to Viktor Orbán, and I have to say that probably everything I've read since has not been good news. All right. Okay. Hungary needs a strong leader, that's for sure, because Hungarian politics has been fraught with difficulty. But we need strong leaders in most nations, I think.
Do you think it's any accident that wasn't it in Hungary where those pagers were manipulated? Was it in Hungary?
It could well be. Yeah.
I don't know if they may have got some help from Viktor.
Yeah, but now, it disturbs me that, for example, former president met with this gentleman in Mar-a-Lago last summer, or this summer just gone, and so he's actually very close to Trump by the looks of it.
Yeah, I think Trump, although Trump to me sounded foolish for bringing Viktor Orban's name into the debate, but Trump forgot that he wasn't speaking just to his own his own people there. He was speaking to the American people, but he can get away with that speaking to any one of his own rallies and bringing up Viktor Orban. Viktor Orban is a bit of a hero for the far right types, and of course, what Trump really meant to do is to identify himself with that he knows that there's a bunch of admiration for. Are you there? Are you there, Peter?
I'm here. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because there was some, I think that when he brought Orban up in his speech was a mistake. But he's speaking to his own people there. He knows that there's a lot of admiration for Orban, and he'd forgotten in the debate that he was speaking to everybody in the country. He wasn't just speaking to those already devoted to him.
Yeah,
I think, which pretty much shocked everybody else.
Yeah, and point being is that Viktor Orbán has won 4 straight majorities and controls 2/3 of the parliament in Hungary, and he's basically, so he's got quite a powerful grip on power there. But Hungary has a record, of not exactly being democratic either.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of stuff here that McConnell is a dying, like the Republicans are losing their sort of the knit that they were made out of, and now are changing into a cultish like following of Donald Trump. You got like Johnson, the speaker. He's like, I don't know. He's Bibi Netanyahu's little pet, and the rest of the Republicans don't seem to have a mind of their own at all. And I think this is bothering McConnell. He says the minority leader added that Orban doesn't just admire Russian President Vladimir Putin, he helps him. His government runs interference for Moscow, gumming up European and transatlantic efforts to combat Russia's unlawful aggression at every turn. Hungary's previously refused to help Ukraine in its war. Well, I don't blame him for that, including blocking funding for military and all that. Like, I in his case, he probably is inside of the Russians. I just want the whole thing to stop. Basically, I don't care who wins. Well, I hope nobody is going to win. Myself, that was what I would say. But the Senate minority leader also called out Hungary's relationship with Iran. I have a little sympathy for Hungarian companies that struggle to profit from their ties to genocidal regime in Tehran. Talk about genocidal regimes. There's one in Israel. Of course, hasn't stopped Hungarian firms from committing tens of millions of dollars to financing joint nuclear projects with Iran.
Yeah.
So basically, he's waving the red flag. Now, Orban is getting good points with the people in his country because he says, okay, we got to block the migrants. The European Union is out of control. There's too many migrants coming over. They're letting too many people come in. This is just destabilizing our nations, and we have to do something about it. So I'm going to put up walls. And the European Union says, well, no, you don't do that. You run by our rules. And he says, no, I've got my own rules. So that makes him hugely popular in Hungary, because when they get a bunch of refugees through there and they see that more and more and more will be coming, and your leader puts up a wall that says, keep them out, save Hungary for Hungarians, that gets him big points. And then when he sides with the Catholic Church on things like abortion and all that, that's more big points that he could make. So he's a bit of a Democrat and a dictator all at the same time. He knows which buttons to push to make his people happy. At the same time, he's reducing their power as individuals.
All right. Yeah, and so I can understand why Mitch McConnell might well be opposed to him, because I think McConnell is, whilst he's an old-fashioned Republican, I think he kind of believes in, well, he definitely believes in Republican values. He's definitely not what you would call a Trumpite.
No.
He stands on his own. And he's prepared to actually, stand alone if necessary. And does that mean that we have a divide in the Republican Party?
Yeah, you have a fractious Republican Party, that's for sure. Right now, the Republican Party cannot separate itself from Donald Trump. In fact, the Republicans can't say that Donald Trump lost the last election. They can't. 67 court cases and attempts to prove that the election was fraudulent have failed, including those brought to the Supreme Court, which was stacked by Trump himself. Yet, no Republican can bring themselves to say that, because they'll be forced out. So they have to pretend that the election was fixed or there was something shadowy about it. That's dangerous. When you have a bunch of people, Republicans, a whole party that is afraid to tell the truth. Absolutely afraid to tell the truth. And the best thing they can do is, I don't know, there's something fishy about that election. It wasn't fair. They could say that, but they can't say it was a election like every other election and Donald Trump lost, maybe by just a whisker, but he lost. They can't say that. That's very scary, don't you think?
I do.
And those people, look at the guy on Fox News, the guy that was a Fox guy, a conservative, and he's announcing the results of the election, and he sees that Arizona has gone to Biden, and he says to his colleagues, "And it looks like should I announce that?" And I guess I should announce it, that Arizona has got to Biden. He lost his job because he was the one that announced it. That's what kind of situation we have here, where a guy speaks the truth. He says Arizona has been won by Biden. Just him saying that, telling what comes up on his prompter when he sees more votes for Biden than Trump, and it announces apparently Biden has won Arizona, that cost him his job.
Yeah. And all he's doing is reading what's on the teleprompter. And he's seeing what's in front of him and speaking what is the truth, even if it's unpalatable. And the point being is that things don't always go your way. Things sometimes go against you. You still got to tell the story, even when things have gone against you.
My point is that the Trump people who most normally watch Trump sort of supporters, most normally would watch Fox, are enraged. Yeah. So they want the messenger killed. Kill the messenger. And that's what they did. They threw the guy off the air. And all he did was tell the truth. All he did was report what he saw. And so he becomes so unpopular that that the Fox had a firearm.
Yeah.
That's same when Elizabeth Cheney is talking truth to power. They threw her out of the Republican Party. Right? They don't recognize her. When after 3 recounts of the Arizona election results, the Republicans that said that the machines are good, everything's fine. Looks like Biden won by a small amount. He got railroaded out of the Republican Party too because he dared speak the truth. I think it's a very, very dangerous thing that's happening among the Republicans, and I don't doubt the same thing's happening among the Democrats too. Remember when journalist Matt Taibbi pointed out that Trump did not collude with the Russians at all. There's no evidence that he colluded with the Russians at all during election time.
Yeah,
and he brought that up. He faced all kinds of vitriol because of that. And all he kept saying is over and over and over again is, I'm just showing you what I see. And that whole Mueller thing was unnecessary. It didn't show anything, and I can tell you why it didn't show anything, because the Democrats were making a mountain out of a molehill in order to besmirch Trump. He can do that on his own, so I don't know why they did it.
Okay. Yeah, and the other thing about that is that I'm just I don't know. I'm done. I was thinking in relation to the election, this upcoming election, try to see, I'm going to say this because I'm thinking, see some unusual moves, right, in this election. You're going to see I think you're going to see some Republicans beat the Democrats in Democrat traditional lands and vice versa. And Dems will beat the Republicans in traditional Republican lands.
It depends on who comes out and votes. And I think that's the main thing. If everybody if all sectors of the population come out and vote in big numbers, Kamala should win. She should win over more of the independents than Trump will. The very unfortunate thing that the Democrats have done here is they picked a person that was already unpopular and not really had a high regard, and then suddenly making her a person of huge significance. That's a hard thing to sell. If the Republicans had anyone else running than Donald Trump, the Republicans would win right now. But because they have half the population set against them, they'll vote. They'll vote for anybody. They vote for Ronald McDonald over Trump. So there's a sector of the population that will vote.
I think you're going to see some unusual. I think you're going to see some unusual voting, right?
Well, I think it's going to come down to those who is voting myself, and if the independents and the double haters. The double haters are the big one here. The double haters have to come up. They hate Kamala and they hate Trump. That would be me if I was in the States right now. I dislike both of them. I dislike both their parties and what they become. Yeah. But the Republicans scare me more than the Democrats. So,
and then Peter Biker comes up. Meanwhile, CTV maliciously edited Poilievre's recent speech, twisting his message to millions of voters. 2 staffers were fired, yet the lie and business continues unabated. Crazy times.
Yeah, I actually they apologized to Poilievre, and I've seen that kind of mistake happen before. I don't know. I to this day I'm not sure that it was intentional, because obviously they were going to get caught out on it. So I think it would have been dumber than dumb to actually do that on purpose. Yeah. But you're quite right. And edited versions of everything, like I've seen that of late. Edited versions of debates, edited versions of comments, edited versions of quotes, you can really change what anything means by editing it. You
Yeah.
know?
Peter says there's no mistakes.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm not so sure. CTV is in really rough shape right now, and I don't. And they once they got rid of their anchor, that woman, I forget her name right now. I didn't watch TV at the time anyway, but that was indication of what CTV is. So, yeah, I do think there are mistakes. Otherwise, because this was too dumb of a mistake, really. It's like super dumb. It was gonna help Polyev more than hurt him. You understand what I'm saying there?
Oh yeah.
Like, why would they want to pick sides? Well, of course maybe they want to, but
Yeah.
they were going to pay for that. And
All right.
anyone who tried to pull that off, anyone that says that'll never work.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. So Netanyahu, not Biden, is setting the agenda for the Middle East right now. Absolutely. So this is NBC News saying this, and absolutely true that he's the one setting all of the agenda, and you've been saying it for months. I don't care what you have to say, Mr. Biden, just give me bombs.
That's right. And Biden came out and said, yes, the Israelis have agreed to this peace deal, and we should have it any day now. But at that time, when that announcement was made, I said, have you seen Netanyahu say anything that he accepted this deal?
Yeah,
he never came out and accepted the deal.
He's never accepted it at all, and there's not been any accept. There's almost been zero acceptance by the Israelis of any deal.
And when asked about this, the U.S. Speakers, the ones that are answer the question, the press guys, when asked about that, how come Netanyahu hadn't said it? How come he isn't out in news saying it? Oh, we're saying it for him. They kept saying, we're saying he doesn't have to come out and say it. We're saying it for him. Well, we can guarantee you that he accepts this. That's what they were saying. And the journalists were saying, like I was saying, I said it before them, but I'm sure it was going on. I said, well, wait a minute. How come he's never come out and said it, spoken it? How come? How come he's never said that he's accepted it publicly? And they said, oh, he doesn't have to. They kept saying, oh, he doesn't have to. We're saying it. And right now, the biggest shock I got, this is NBC saying this. NBC, usually they tote the line. They don't criticize Israel one bit. But right here, and they also don't, I think this is a network that doesn't normally criticize the Democrats. But they have pointed this out that Biden is extremely weak and Netanyahu is doing whatever he wants to do and just gets the weapons from the U.S., tells them to shut up, and bombs whatever they want. Now, they had a peace deal ready for Lebanon to be a 3-week ceasefire. They were so sure that this was going to go through that they already had gone to the next stages of planning. And then and they talked to Netanyahu, and he led them to believe that he was open to it, and then bombed the crap out of Lebanon. And also, I have to say they were able to get at Nasrallah, the Houthi commander. Right now, the United States is locked into a situation where they have to give Israel weapons because that's what the president says he's going to do. But they haven't, and they were hoping that because the United States has cooperated so open-handedly with Israel, that Israel then would owe them a favor or two. Israel says, no, we don't owe you nothing. Give me the bombs you said you were going to give me and shut up. And Blinken and Biden and Kamala Harris says every day they work hard for peace. Well, they can't work hard for peace because Bibi doesn't want it. Bibi just snubs them constantly. And I thought to myself, I might be thinking of this in the wrong way. Is this a good cop, bad cop thing, Peter? When the U.S. pretends to be pursuing peace at the same time working with the Israelis? Because in the press conferences, they have pointed out that the United States is working with Israel in its defense of itself. So I don't think they could get at Nasrallah or pull off the pager thing or any of these things without a lot of help from the United States. The United States has already admitted that they have identified where Hamas leaders were in Gaza and transmitted that knowledge to the Israelis. So what we're having here is the good cop, bad cop thing, where the Israelis are the bad guy and the U.S. is the good guy, making it look like they're pursuing peace, but on the sly, they're just making things, helping Israel do anything.
The trouble is, you've got this 2-word thing. You know, they're saying good, 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 and they're issuing bad, bad, bad. You know.
Yeah, like saying, "Oh, look, buddy, we're really trying to get some peace going on here. You got to hear." And you and Israel here, we had some peace. Here, Israel, here's a box of bombs. We'll make sure we'll try to get you some food, though, buddy. We really are trying to make sure that food shipments get to you. Here's another big box of bombs, Israel. And here we're going to make sure you try to get a independent state when all this is over. Here you go, Israel. Here's another big bomb. You see what I mean? Yeah. That's that good cop, bad cop kind of thing. And it might explain to me why Biden has permitted himself to look like such a weak puppet of Netanyahu. The U.S. Congress is just dancing to Netanyahu's tune. They have no mind of their own. It's shocking to me. Shocking how much control Israel has over
the question, though. So, how much will change after November 5th?
Nothing. Kamala Harris can't do anything. The one thing Biden can do for Kamala, if he's got a brain left, is as he's going out, he can be the one that stops the weapons going to Israel, because the blame will then be put on him. So once the election happens and she's going to be the next president of the United States,
I'm not even sure she is going to be, but then I'll let that go.
Yeah, that might not happen. That might not happen. You're quite right about that. But I all indications right now she's going to squeak out a victory. If that does happen, she won't change much. But as the outgoing president, Biden could restrict the amount of arms going to Israel and stop them, use some leverage. But right now, he's not using any leverage at all.
Yeah. Yep, sorry about that. I don't know why, but I lost the camera for a second. Anyway, there we go. There, back to the original camera again. Lost it for a second there. All right.
And like I said, it's NBC that's putting this out there. And aren't they more of a Democrat type paper, aren't they? Aren't they more leaning towards Democrats?
Yeah. Interesting. Well, I picked this up, and I picked this one up yesterday. Pope Francis, when asked about Israeli strikes, said that many of those attacks go beyond morality. And he was interviewed on a flight out of Rome to Belgium, and this was reported in Reuters.
Yeah, I have a feeling that Netanyahu sees this as an opportunity to really expand the land area of Israel. He's shown a couple of weeks before October 7th, he showed the United Nations a picture of Israel that included the West Bank and the Gaza Strip and the Golan Heights. I think he sees this as an opportunity to get some more land in southern Lebanon. he is
But they're
really
gonna
in the
go,
driver's seat, basically. He can do whatever he
they're
wants
gonna
to
go
do.
beyond that river though, aren't they? They're gonna go way beyond that river.
Well, they'll go up to the Latani River at least, and that will
Yeah.
get them water. They are already pushed most of the inhabitants out of that area. So they've already sort of almost, they don't even have to ethnically cleanse it. They just scare them with war and they run away. And if the Israelis move in, they won't let them back in. You see what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Netanyahu is a gambler like Hitler was. He really, really pushes the other powers right to the limit. Like it's kind of like Hitler in Chamberlain, basically, where he promises them he won't do this or that, but then again, then just goes ahead and does it.
Peace in our time, not a chance.
A chance. And Biden has flim-flammed every president, or Bibi's flim-flammed every president, and those people, like there are a lot of admirers of Reagan out there. He stood up to the Israelis. He stood up and talked about their work in Lebanon as a Holocaust. And he told, I think it was Sharon at the time, get out of there. Stop this. Stop what you're doing. It's a Holocaust. But Biden can't do it. Trump certainly won't do it. Kamala Harris will be as weak as Biden is because of the setup they have. I think Bibi sees his opportunity. This is the weakest weakest administration he's ever seen, and he's taken full advantage of it.
Yeah, absolutely he is. All right. Yeah, and we can leave that one till tomorrow. Any further thoughts?
I don't know. I think the major war has been interrupted. Everybody sees major war on the precipice. It might be, but because of Israel's ability to chop the heads off of all the leadership of Hezbollah, and in an extraordinary intelligence coup, even being able to get Nasrallah. I'm not sure. I don't understand why Nasrallah was in his bunker at the time the Israelis came to get him. They must have known that he wouldn't be safe under there. They're using the best bombs that the U.S. can supply them. I don't believe for 1 minute that the U.S. didn't know this was going to happen. They may not have known exactly what time or date it was, so they could have some plausible deniability, but I'm sure they're the ones that helped them target it. I'm sure they're the ones that gave them the bombs they knew that would do the work of getting into his underground bunker.
And the point about this being is that they just seem to carry it off and just get it done with such deadly accuracy.
It's almost it is chilling for Hezbollah or Hamas or Iran that Israel has the kind of intelligence capabilities it has.
Yeah,
but Mossad got into the compound of go ahead.
Mossad is well known for its its intelligence gathering, always has been.
But this is extraordinary, and the hand of the U.S. is all over this, of course. Maybe not official, but nobody does that where they can make a whole bunch of pagers, put an explosive in each one of them, and somehow this gets manufactured and nobody knows about it. And how can that happen when there's all the people that assemble the thing together, and all the people that bring in the parts, and they had to bring in these little explosives and put them in somehow without anybody noticing. And then finding each and every one of the high commanders of Hezbollah, and they found them, including the head guy himself, Nasrallah. That takes an extraordinary amount of effort, money, and that the Israelis are good, have incredible intelligence capabilities, but the hand of the U.S. is all over this. Like I said, right down to the bombs. They're probably the ones that said, this is the bomb you're going to need to do that. These are the bombs you want to do that job. And then turn their way and sort of send low-level officials to give them that message so that they have plausible deniability. Hezbollah hasn't got a chance basically in all of Iran because they're both fighting Israel and the United States. Now, Hezbollah, like Israel, will be fighting Iran and Hezbollah, but it's quite a bit smaller of a force. It's like a Pee-wee versus NHL.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's, I think, the challenge with in relation to Israel out there in relation to the rest of the Middle East, especially many of the other countries surrounding Israel are a lot poorer.
Yeah, and Israel needs room to expand, and so it's I have no doubt that it has eyes on southern Lebanon. They are already making it impossible for people to live in Gaza after all this, and of course the West Bank, they're making life miserable for everybody there, hoping that in time they'll all move out if they don't get expelled before that. Israel is really running the show here as this article, and like I said, NBC publishing that article really surprised me because they usually tote the line on things about Israel. So I don't know. Getting drawn into another war, a major war. I don't think Iran will take the bait, because what happened to Hezbollah and their intelligence being weak intelligence being revealed, Iran knows it has the same problem. Whatever Israelis' intelligence capabilities were with Hezbollah are with Iran too. They don't know really, they were able to kill Hamas's chief negotiator right in the most secure compound in Iran.
Yeah.
That's got to have everybody. And they were able to get Nasrallah finally after hiding for 32 years. I thought they would get him, actually. Way back, I thought, how come this guy is still alive? If they've got Osama bin Laden, how come they haven't got this guy yet? Well, apparently they've known where he is for a long time. It was just timing that they had to do it. So they probably got a whole lot of help from the U.S. on that. I don't say probably, did. They did get, because this couldn't, even as good as Israel is, they couldn't have done it without Big Brother's helping hand.
All right. Okay. All right. I think we can kind of call it quits at that point.
Yes, and unfortunately, at that point where a looming war is happening, and even in one of our other articles, NATO has told Canada to get closer to war footing.
We'll get there tomorrow.
Yeah,
we'll get there tomorrow. Yeah.
So anyway, without further ado, I bid you adieu. Pray for peace.